kind of proud of my people coming back out of this pandemic. They have a new appreciation for what they had. They have a new appreciation for what they have. And I think that it's a higher commitment than they've ever had before.
And giving our customers and the end users the confidence to know that we're ready. We're in a fighting stance coming out of this. We've spent a year ensuring that we're prepared for this. We're investing in talent as an industry.
We're safe, secure place to do business. That very shortly we will be open. And we welcome all of our customers, whether it's the organizer, the exhibitor, the attendee coming back.
We're ready to roll. Our members are ready to roll. We're ready to do it the right way. And, we're ready to get the trade show and convention industry as a whole back on its feet.
And we just are ready to get back to work. We're chomping at the bit and can't wait for those shows to start again so that we can really rekindle our relationships with our clients and really get back to what it is we love to do.
The thing I'm most excited about with getting back to trade shows is the people side of it. I think the people make up this industry more than anything, and few industries were harmed as much as our industry was, especially on the people side of the business. So to see the great people have an opportunity to get back to work and get back to the trade shows.
And the thing I'm looking forward to the most is getting back to face-to-face business. Reconnecting face-to-face with our clients.
I think the greatest thing about, our group in ESCA is that we really do all take off our individual company hats and put on our industry hat and have that advocacy together to make sure that our customers have the best experience possible and are successful.
It's like everybody's saying, we're all a big family. Even together as an industry, we're a family. And just trying to tell the rest of the world that our industry is still alive and we're going to be there.
I hope communication came out of this. I hope sharing amongst competitors, amongst different groups and across the industry will be our lasting legacy from this. Then finally, as a building, I'd like to say we're excited to welcome people back. I mean, that at the end of the day, we can't wait to get back to doing what it is that we've all spent our careers trying to encourage.
It's hard to appreciate the good times if you haven't experienced any bad. And so I think coming out of this, an increased awareness of the value of live events and gatherings and everyone associated with that can be an opportunity.
We're here and we're ready. And we're better as an industry. At this point, I think we've learned a lot as an industry and have learned how to come together and learn how to help, see what other industries and other areas have done to make themselves better through pandemics and other challenges in the future, and how we can now come together even better and provide a better product and a better service for our customers as a complete industry.
Welcome. We are excited to be here with you all today to discuss the much anticipated return of exhibition and events already underway. I'm Neil McMullin, Senior Vice President of Shared Services with Fern, but more importantly for this panel, I'm the current President of ESCA, the Exhibition Services and Contractors Association. We are an association comprised of contractors, suppliers, labor, and all that it takes to get a show running behind the scenes. Today, we come together as part of ESCA's All-In initiative, whose goal is to communicate to all stakeholders in the industry what our member organizations are doing to both be ready for the restart of our industry and also embrace and drive a new future of how audiences and brands connect in live engagements. The focus of our discussion today is to address what we are doing so that we are ready for the challenges and the bumps in the road that come after now a year plus of very few face-to-face events and a fairly rapid restart of our industry. We will discuss how the compression of the schedule in the last half of the year presents some unique challenges in the short run. But we hope by the end of this discussion, you'll have a better understanding of what we're doing to ensure the success of every event, industry-wide, and that we can demonstrate that we are indeed all in because it's time to get back to what we do best. I'm joined today by a panel of industry veterans and leaders representing years of experience in the exhibition and events industry. And at this time, I want to have our panelists introduce themselves. So to kick it off, let's start with you, Joanne.
Thank you, Neil. Hi, everyone. I'm Joanne Sanders, and I hail from Indianapolis, Indiana, where we just successfully and safely hosted the largest event since 2019, the greatest spectacle in racing. We can do this. I'm a member of the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, where I serve as the International Vice President, as well as Trade Show Director. We represent workers in film, television, live theater, and music, in addition to, of course, conventions, conferences, and trade shows. On this call, I am serving as the current co-chair of the Labor Management Council of ESCA. ESCA's Labor Management Council is made up of contractors and representatives from our international unions. This includes the IBEW, the carpenters, the painters, Teamsters, and of course the IATSE. So today I'll be speaking on behalf of all these unions. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne, and welcome. David, let's have you go next.
Thank you, Neil. I'm David Causton, VP and General Manager for ASM Global, and we operate the McCormick Place campus, which includes the 4,000-seat Erie Crown Theater, the 10,000-seat Wintrust Arena, which is the home for DePaul basketball, and of course the Chicago Sky of the WNBA. And of course, we operate McCormick Place, the largest convention center in North America. I've had the opportunity to be in this industry over 30 years. And one of the things I've always felt we did extremely well was collaborate. We've done a really good job in the venue world of talking to each other, trying to figure out ways to improve the experience that our customers have as they travel from venue and facility around the country. But we've all been challenged in the last 14 months to do more collaboration than we've ever done before. And collaboration, not just between venues, but between contractors, between unions, between everyone that makes up the biosphere of what is an event. And that also includes our attendees, our exhibitors, and our organizers. I can tell you we passed the audition. We've done a really good job of collaborating, and we're ready to show you some of those results today. I'm here representing ESCA's Venue and Management Council, which is again a group of venue executives that meet on a regular basis to talk about what are the impacts within our industry. So I will be representing the venues across the U.S. on this call today.
Thank you, David, and we're glad you're here. And I'm really glad you brought up collaboration. We're going to spend some time on that a little bit later. Up next, we have Randy. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Randy Pekowski, President and COO of the Expo Group. I'm also an ESCA board member, and I have over 25 years experience in the trade show and events industry. Today, I hope to bring my personal experience and the voice of my fellow contractors to this conversation, and I'm honored to represent this group.
Thank you, Randy. Up next, we have Jeff Quade.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jeff Quade, Executive Vice President of Exhibitions for GES. I too have been in the industry for over 30 years, and I look forward to bringing you perspectives and my personal experience to this call.
Thank you, Jeff. And last but certainly not least, we have Chris Schimek. Chris?
Hello, everyone, and thanks for inviting me to speak today. As Neil said, I'm Chris Schimek, Executive Vice President of Event Delivery with Freeman. I'm also ESCA's immediate past president and current board member. I have about 24 years with Freeman, 30 on the overall industry, and I'm excited to bring that experience to the panel today. And one small caveat I want to say in advance, in case my dogs interfere as I'm speaking at some point, I'll apologize in advance.
Thank you. No worries. Thanks for joining us. Well, before we get into our conversation, thank you all of you for joining us as part of our panel. And I'm truly honored to moderate this panel of leaders. Just a little bit of housekeeping. We welcome all of your questions, and I invite you to submit them in the Q&A section that you should see on your screen. We will have a full Q&A at the end of the session, and we will also try to address some of the questions as they come in, as they come in during the conversation, if it hits our relevant topic as well. We have a lot to cover today. And so we're going to just try to keep this to 1 hour. And so let's jump in. Well, before we get started, we do have one more panelist who's joined us by audio. Damon, are you there?
I'm here, Neil. Hello, everyone. You know, technology is a great thing when it works. My computer decided to crash, about a half an hour before the meeting. So I apologize for being a little tardy and being on audio. But anyway, I'm Damon Ross. I'm the Senior Group Vice President for CORT Events. And I'm also here representing ESCA. I'm the Vice President and also the co-chair of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee for ESCA. So I'm looking forward to our discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you, Damon, and thank you for getting on any way you can. We're happy to have you here, even through audio. Okay, well let's set the stage and get started here. You know, I think it makes sense to start where we are today for the face-to-face events industry. So for that, I'd like to turn it over to David. David, where are we at today as you see it, as we emerge from this pandemic and restart our industry?
Well, Neil, that's a great question. And I think the answer is we're in a good place. So what I can tell you is that the time to begin events is now. As we look around and see what's happening out there, there's several reasons that we can easily say the time to start events is now. And the first is the science. The science tells us that the time to meet is now because we're seeing lower cases in the US. We're seeing lower hospitalization rates. We're seeing very low positivity rates, which all of us have learned about what a positivity rate is. And we're seeing higher vaccination rates. We're really lucky in our country to have now 4, not 3, but 4 vaccines that work effectively for our population. And I'm also happy that we're sharing some of those vaccines around the world to help those less fortunate than us. The other thing we learned just today is that California is opening up again. So as we look at what's happening around the country, we can certainly see things progressing. I think the other reason the time to meet now is that our customers tell us it is. Just this morning, FabTech, which will be a large trade show here in Chicago, announced they were coming in September. There was a sort of palpable kind of excitement about the fact that this event was coming and that people were going to have the opportunity to meet face to face. And the third reason we're ready to meet is because we're prepared as venues to receive you. We've been working very hard to be prepared, to do the necessary kind of cleaning protocols and other mitigations that make it safe and welcoming place for you to do business in the future. So as we look around the country, we're seeing that things are starting up. We're seeing that events are starting to happen. In fact, if you go to Orange County Convention Center this week on Friday, you're seeing the opening of the AAU Junior Volleyball Championship, which over a series of a number of days will bring over 100,000 people to Orlando. And then here in Chicago, we're getting ready for a very busy summer and fall season beginning in July. The first big event that we're doing is the summer version of the Chicago Auto Show, which will, over the 5-day run, bring about 130,000 people to our facilities. So Neil, I think we're ready. It's just a matter of putting all the pieces together and operating and getting ready to open up.
Thank you, David. There's certainly a lot to be optimistic about in your update there. What I'd like to focus on is talking about what it means to all of us behind the scenes, right? We know that the foreseeable future and even the present with the events that are happening, there's a unique set of challenges with crises in the past like 9/11 and the 2008 recession and other nationwide and global crises that we've gone through as an industry. We've had already to learn how to adapt. That's something I really love about this industry. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic has brought that to a new level, new challenges that require us to adjust our way of business once again. So let's discuss how we are going to address these challenges. So to stay with the theme of today's call, we're going to focus on how we are all in. And to do that, we have focused on really 3 categories that will organize our thoughts around: ready, restart, and reinvention. So before today, as an organization, we held several working group sessions with select ESCA members. I would like to start by showing a clip from some of these sessions to kick off the ready portion of our conversation.
People weren't always talking, but people are now talking more. So I think that's very beneficial.
I think the biggest thing that we can all do as an industry is be hyper focused on communication, be as proactive as we can be working with all the partners that we work with to coordinate, put these shows together, and be as transparent as we can be.
We're all willing to work with buildings and employers to discuss and implement prudent, reasonable protocols to ensure everyone's success.
We're going to have to be flexible. I think we're going to have to keep our ears open. And I also think we're going to have to take a look at what our other buildings are doing, because so many of us have gotten best practices throughout this from each other.
So having those relationships and maintaining those relationships has been key to bringing people back and restarting because of the relationships and the confidence we've built with those people.
I'm almost surprised at times that 14 to 16 months later, they're all still, 95+% of them are ready to come back and work.
It's anything that we can do to accommodate an end user and make sure that they have the best capabilities to get back to work if they're not working. If they are working, that they're having the best experience possible from all components.
In different markets, different areas, there's nothing to worry about. We have your back. We have access to partners that know information we might not know from where we're at. So we're here, we're ready, we're more efficient, and let's move.
We've expanded our team. We've expanded our capabilities and our locations across the country, and we're ready to get back to work.
As you heard, ready for us revolves around having our workforce, equipment, and materials ready to go. This means rehiring, onboarding, training, and ensuring we have what we need from the supply chain to ensure customer success and to fully staff face-to-face engagements, both pre-event and on-site. Well, let's start with the workforce. Let's start specifically with our skilled union labor workforce. So Joanne, what can you tell us about the unions and their readiness to get back to work? What are you hearing from your service on our labor committee?
Thanks, Neil. I just really want to stress that each and every one of those who are representing workers in this trade show industry know that our workers are eager to get back. We have been in contact with them throughout the pandemic, and all of the international unions have been working together as we try to assess the needs of our members and share information with each other so that we can help them to the best of our ability. This included paying dues so that people could stay updated with their quarterly commitments to their internationals. It also included helping them with their healthcare benefits. Each different international has different plans and found ways to ensure that people could retain coverage through most of the pandemic. Most recently, the Rescue Act provided for COBRA subsidies, which gives people until September to have assistance with healthcare. And by then, we know our contributions are going to start coming regularly because of the fact that the work will have picked up. In addition to that, we've assisted with annuities and 401ks because the CARES Act provided people to withdraw money without tax penalties in order to stay afloat. We've also done food banks. We've also shared with our employers the ability to revamp production. We did PPE production, and a lot of our workers provided assistance in setting up vaccination sites all over the country and then staffed those sites to ensure that people throughout the country were able to get access to vaccines readily. This is just an example of some of the commitments that our workers have made to their communities because they want to stay busy. And their goal now is to get back to work. They cannot wait to get back to work. In short, I just want to explain that the relationship between a local union member and their union is different than one between an employer and an employee. Once they become an active member, they are tethered. They have access to benefit funds that vest them. They develop a career. We've been able to provide them with online training throughout the pandemic that includes training in COVID safety protocols. So from my perspective, I honor their commitment. I honor the fact that they stayed with us throughout all of this. And the best way to honor them is to put them back to work. And we see that coming now. They are eager and they are ready.
Thank you, Joanne. Now let's hear from some of our other panelists about what they're doing to be ready related to non-union staff. Let's start with you, Randy. Tell us a bit about the phases you see for the rehiring process and what some of the general service contractors are doing outside of union labor to address staffing.
The hiring phases for the member companies are directly correlated to the current position of the event's return on the recovery curve. While we're all expecting a robust fall in 2020, we are all currently in the revival phase, where the companies are restarting and heavily focused on scaling our workforce from the previous minimal levels during the event interruption to where they are today and to where the staff levels need to be tomorrow. The most significant hiring spike is occurring now, and we should expect hiring to continue over the next 12 months as we move up further in the recovery curve for robust 22. To date, the rehiring of talent has been very successful for the ESCA membership companies. This success has been mainly attributed to the commitment and passion the employees have for this industry and the level of engagement, communication, and other initiatives that took place by each individual company. So we have each of these members, the talent and our staff members to thank, and they all deserve a round of applause for helping bring back this industry.
Thanks, Randy. And you know, as we hear from Chris and Jeff, I'd love to hear if you're seeing that same trend within your organizations that Randy mentions, and how that's impacted all of you. And you know, that brings us to this challenge from a staffing and scaling position of how we handle these peaks and valleys that we see a little bit right now. And I know many contractors have implemented different staffing models and different programs to help address this. Long time in the making. A lot of these plans went into place early on in the pandemic. Jeff, maybe you can tell us a bit about some of the unique ways GS is handling this challenge.
Sure, thanks, Neil. To ensure our readiness, GS created the Flex Management Labor Pool to help contractors manage the compressed Q3 and Q4 2021 schedule. One of the goals of the Flex Management Pool is to provide exhibition management professionals full-time work in what will be a very cyclical environment in 21. That pool is available to contractors to provide these experienced managers and supervisors more employment opportunities, and is intended to supplement the return of many employees in a full-time status. We will successfully execute the 2021 calendar and provide great service to the participating companies and enable show organizers to create communities that drive commerce, communication, and networking.
Thank you, Jeff. That's great innovation, and thanks for leading out on that. Chris, so that leaves you and I to talk about how to onboard sometimes a lot of new faces at once and a lot of returning faces, and ensure that they can exceed the needs of all our clients. How is Freeman handling this challenge?
Thank you, Neil. As we all know, the timeline was accelerated dramatically thanks to successful vaccine rollout that David mentioned and updated CDC guidelines. We're ramping up quickly as shows come back, and we're happy to be doing so after a year that we've all had. And to Randy's point, there is a lot of passion. Our goal is to re-onboard furloughed team members, and we're working hard and quickly to do so. What helps is that Freeman has been in regular contact with all of them. We've done that through their managers. We've done it through a newsletter called Stay Connected that has gone out to all of them. We've done town halls. And then we've done webinars on a range of topics. And for the furloughed team, fortunately, our focus is really restart and then ready. Speaking of ready, as we bring the team back and add new team members too, onboarding is going to be essential and consistent way to make sure that we can deliver on the brand experience and promise. To do so, each of our teams have created playbooks for onboarding to ensure that we're up and running and serve our customers as quickly as possible. We've also engaged those on furlough and others in the industry through Live Team, which is an online community networking resource for professionals in the business events industry. The goal is to build a community to connect, share, and learn new tools to help prepare talent as we come back to live events.
Thanks, Chris. And you know, one thing I've heard from many of our ESCA membership is the use of technology and the role that that plays on onboarding. You know, the challenge is, you know, we've got to onboard quickly in a lot of cases, and from recorded trainings to other online tools, we're seeing an adoption of new technology that sometimes, you know, is kind of hard to implement at the rate of business prior to the pandemic, and we're seeing that help as well. We don't lose that one-on-one touch, but we also can help provide resources to employees coming on so they're not waiting on anybody to get the information they need and be ready. So thank you all for that. Let's turn to a little bit to the supply chain. So Damon, can you speak to us from a supplier's perspective about the supplier side and the material side to get ready for the restart?
So I had a pretty diverse group in my committee. You know, we had anywhere from service to product providers to logistics, freight, and also staffing, janitorial, and security. So I'll try to speak to all of those voices about how we're ready from a material, and since we had a staffing company, from a staffing standpoint. So first of all, the most important thing to remember is we had inventory at our highest level, right, which was 19. So while we have reduced some of our inventory and got rid of some old products, we still have a lot of inventory to be ready to meet any needs for the upcoming, 6 months to a year. And with addition with that, we have great communications with our partners, with all the associations, with the contractors. So we get a preview of the shows that are coming up. So we already know up to 6 months from now which shows are scheduled. So as we analyze our inventory and product, we make sure that we have enough to meet the needs of those shows coming up. So, during this slowdown, we have repaired a lot of product. So we have more product ready to go than ever before. We have reorganized our warehouses. Some of the freight companies have started and added driving schools to make sure that we have enough drivers to meet the needs. A lot of the service providers have also started a warehouse program where they have a program where they teach warehouse associates how to drive and to get their driving certificates. So, all that helps us to be ready for the upcoming shows. We've also, of course, worked on some software technology stuff where we have ERP systems and also some software application systems to help communication flow. And we've also worked on lean processes throughout some of the organizations. And then for some of the retailers, what they have started is kind of a rental program in which they used to sell, things right away, but now they have either extended terms or kind of a rent-to-own program. So we're being very flexible with the needs of the upcoming shows.
Thank you, Damon, for that. And in looking at some of the questions that are coming in, one of the questions that came in that I think we should talk about is the idea of labor shortages. So the comment is that labor shortages are a regular news item these days for many industries. You mentioned several points on why the event industry shouldn't expect to be impacted as much as other industries such as retail and restaurants. Can you highlight again why? And in that same vein, we've had some commentary about how they've heard certain specific cities that have lost labor to other jobs and are struggling to ramp back up. So Joanne, are there any cities in particular that we should be concerned about? And how does the labor relate to some or differ for our industry as opposed to some of these other industries mentioned?
Well, foremost, I would say that in some of those other industries, our folks are career oriented. They've made a commitment to training. They've made a commitment to employers. They've made a commitment to the industry. So their idea of work is their career. And in order to use the skills they've developed over time, returning to this career is their goal. Some of the other industries, that doesn't necessarily hold true, especially, for example, the restaurants and even hospitality in general. So I think we have a little different perspective from our workers here. They see the work on the horizon and they're ready to return. They're doing whatever they can to enable themselves to return. In addition to that, I don't know specific cities that have expressed to us major concerns. As I mentioned earlier, I'm in contact with all of the other international unions. We're all staying in contact with our membership, and we have not seen a wholesale evacuation of members from any of the internationals. At best, maybe 2 or 3% attributable to retirement, which were folks who would have retired anyway. And so from my perspective, I think that we are looking at a group of workers that will be ready and able, and that we can be flexible among ourselves in making sure that those calls are filled.
Thank you. Jeff, Chris, or Randy, would either of you like to add on to that?
I'll go for a quick second here, Neil. I think more than anything, it goes back to communication. And we've all been working very closely together across, those are on a panel, but all of our member companies. But, we've had conversations with Joanne, we've had them with all the different trades as interest relates to shows ramping back up. And, the other thing to consider, as shows come back, the labor calls won't be as large to start because of the size and the type of shows or the makeup of the shows. So there again, that is ramping back up as well. And there were some members that went and did other things in the short term, to Joanne's point and others, but they are all coming back. As the work comes back, they are, coming back to, get back into the industry.
Yeah, that rings true from our experience on the Fern side. We're seeing the same trend. And does it take a little time to get people back in and onboarded? Yes, and that is a challenge, but we are seeing the return for sure. Well, let's move on to the next topic. As we sort of dug into all these working group conversations that we saw a video clip earlier, we found really that the conversation talked about how impossible it was to really restart our industry without also reinventing ourselves. And part of that may have been out of necessity, but a lot of it was also due to the opportunity to focus on areas of improvement that are just hard to change at the speed of pre-pandemic business. I've got one colleague who likes to say it was like trying to paint the car while it was moving, right? So I'm going to go back to these. Let's go back to these working sessions and show you what I mean there. So let's have a look.
This is really a time of change, and our ability to change and our ability to be flexible and to deal with new settings that we find ourselves in and new challenges. It's really going to be what we're going to be working on for the next year.
Trying to partner with our customers too, because there are some things that we're being faced with today and in the coming months that didn't exist prior to the pandemic, and that's the global constriction on the supply chain, which is indirectly driving up costs in related industries and also direct industries. And again, we're also dealing with this compression of the show floor size.
It's really about best practices, really gleaning from other facilities and figuring out what has worked and what hasn't worked. We don't have all the answers.
One of the things that we prioritized during the pandemic is a revolutionary way to communicate with workers, evaluate skill shortages, and provide workers with additional training to prepare for being the first city in the country to really kick off trade shows.
We're all going to be coming out of this a more efficient animal.
We're here, we're strong, we're leaner than we were, we're more efficient than we were. In a lot of ways, we're better than we were.
We've kind of had this time to catch our breath and get to all those projects we always wanted to get to while we were, out traveling all the time and our people just out of the office. So, we revamped our websites, we revamped all of our service kits, we've just updated procedures, policies, etc.
We worked on a number of simplification initiatives, and these are about making everything we do easier.
This is only going to be better for everybody moving forward, because once we come out of this, now we have a whole new set of opportunities, which is more work for all of us.
I want to take a moment to thank all of those who participated in the working group sessions and those of you that submitted your stories for us to share as well. I'm proud to be a part of an association with so many members willing to participate. It's been great. Okay, back to restarting and reinvention. Let's start the conversation by discussing a little bit of the scaling that we had mentioned here. We do have a compressed calendar this fall, like we haven't seen before. There are some unique challenges that we're preparing for. Chris mentioned that we're seeing some reduced footprints, which can provide some relief to the compression, but that always doesn't necessarily mean fewer tasks or less staff. And also as restrictions lift and organizations gain confidence to travel again, footprints on both the exhibiting side and the attendance side are also rapidly evolving. So this creates an environment where flexibility and ability to scale is important. Let's talk a little bit about what that means and looks like. Randy, how are general service contractors getting ready for the scaling that's coming?
Well, Neil, you summed it up. You're correct. Smaller doesn't necessarily mean less in terms of executing and producing events. In fact, it's a complex delivery model that requires contractors to connect all the producing stakeholders and leverage the technologies to scale geographically and over a duration of time to deliver the services to meet the demand. I guess you could say scaling is in our DNA. Many contractors took this time during the interruption to retool, as you heard, to reinvent their technologies and processes, to improve their abilities to scale, and to reduce unnecessary complexities. I think this is the most significant change that you'll see. There was a theme of simplification and making processes easier. And I think that was a shared initiative amongst all of us. These will result in new services and products that have already been introduced or will be introduced by each of the companies to the customer. Some examples include simplified material handling billing, an industry shift away from CWT, increased digitization of manual and outdated processes, both internally and externally, and an expanded and integrated communication within the exhibitor omni-channels throughout the event and on-site. In addition, due to the pandemic, everyone had to rethink queuing and lines for service. So many of these, if not all of these service innovations, are permanent and thus improving the industry collectively. Neil?
Thank you, Randy. Thank you. Damon, let's talk about suppliers. Certainly there's a national shortage of drivers. That was true prior to the pandemic. It's been exacerbated by the pandemic. There's a nationwide trailer shortage as well. What are some of the innovations we're seeing to be able to scale from suppliers like the transportation and freight industry and others?
Yeah, I mentioned a few. One is, like I said, some of the freight companies are enhancing their driving school programs so that there's various levels of certification that a person can achieve. Also, some of the manufacturers are also developing their own kind of warehouse to driving programs. There's also been some enhancement on the transportation management systems in a number of the companies that we've worked with that will help the process flow there. There is a shortage, and so a lot of our companies have developed bonuses for either hiring or retention to ensure that we get the staffing proper for that. We're also looking at different ways to keep drivers driving, right? So we're looking at double trailer capacity, and also we're looking at ways in which a driver could reach a convention center, for instance, and either Uber back to the warehouse to get another trailer to drop off, or to have someone there to pick them up and drive them back to the warehouse. So they're constantly in the state of driving, because sometimes our drivers would work at facilities besides driving. So we're looking at really ways to increase that driving time.
Yeah, thank you. You know, we talked about innovation from the general service contractors, but certainly there's our venues as well, who have also been busy innovating over the last year and reinventing certain aspects of their operations and offerings. So let's start with David. You want to talk a little bit about what we can see from the venues?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Neil. I think, you know, looking across all of our venue partners that we've been talking to over the last 14 months, I think the very first thing that you're going to see is staffs that are really excited about welcoming people back to the building. All of us are going to do everything we can to provide that welcoming environment for people coming back. We've missed everybody. It's no fun just always talking into the virtual world. We really want to be talking to people face to face. So I'm telling you that you can expect people to welcome you back when you're coming back to our facilities. But there's probably about 5 things that I think you'll see across facilities. The first we touched on, which is the cleaning protocols that we've talked about. Many facilities, including ours, have become GBAC accredited. So those cleaning protocols, the things of hand sanitizers, how we're going to keep the place welcoming and clean, are things I think that you're going to see across convention centers and other venues as you come back for events. The second thing, and others have touched upon this, both in the videos and in the panel here, is the downtime that we had without having events gave us the opportunity to do some capital improvements. So we were able to make improvements, some of the things that customers won't see because it's behind the scenes, but it's important for the upkeep of the building. But a lot of the things you will see in the front of the house, where we've been able to make improvements, or even just do simple things like repaint spaces that just needed that touch up that we couldn't do because of our busy event schedule. I think the other thing you're going to see is that all of us are starting to adopt new technologies. We've talked a little bit about that already on this call, but obviously from our perspective as a facility operator, touchless things that we can do for doorways, in restrooms, things that make the experience for people coming back, making them feel safer, we're going to do. For example, I've heard of one technology when you go in, instead of pushing a button for your ticket to park, you just wave your hand and boom, the ticket comes out, and you're not touching things, because we know in the short term, people are going to be cautious about that till we all come back and are operational. We also are going to embrace what we believe are the events of the future. I know we've all talked about, and many facilities in this interim period have put up broadcast studios, for example. So they've been trying to figure out ways to allow communication to exist and to improve the experience that you would have in the virtual world. And I know that many customers have said, listen, don't use the word hybrid anymore. You know, we want to really look at what the events of the future will be, and what they're telling us is those events will be in person and online. So what the in-person event will be an experience that will be hard to achieve unless you're physically here. But if you're not able to be here, there will be a broader reach for those events by having an online experience. And even if you were here in person, the ability to go back and see some of that online will just make the overall experience richer. So we embrace that within the convention world, and we think we'll be offering that on an ongoing basis. And then to talk about what Neil said on the compressed schedule for the fall of this year, we recognize that across all of the convention centers that I've been talking to. And what we're going to do is work, again, in this collaborative nature, but with some serious planning with all of our partners, whether it's contractors, whether it's exhibitors and attendees, but more importantly, the organizer, and how we figure out how to move things in and out in an efficient way that maximizes the ability for organizers to have events here in 2021. So a lot of changes, a lot of things you're going to see, but in reality, across the platforms of all convention centers, you're going to see individuals that have done a lot of behind the scenes work, have improved the overall product that they're offering to you, and are more than welcoming to have you come back and meet in our facilities.
Thanks, David. There's a lot of great things there. You know, we talk about the compression and we talk about innovation. One of the innovative things that I've been most proud of as ESCA president, involved in an association that's all of my competitors, many of them, is the level of collaboration that we're seeing that I think is going to ease the pain when it comes to being sort of all on top of each other when it comes to move in and move out. So there's one question that came in through the chat regarding this very issue about, you know, how we're going to handle these compressed ins and outs and the handoffs there. Would any of our general service contractor representatives like to make a comment about that and what they're seeing there?
Yeah, Neil, I'll take a stab at it here first. I think, you know, our teams have been closely collaborating with each other and communicating with each other, along with the union trade leadership in the respective geographies, along with our facility partners. And we realize that the goal is higher than each of us individually producing a great show. We all must produce great events that will allow the local hospitality communities that we work in to succeed. And I think in my time in this industry, I can't recall a time where the cross communication and information sharing with one another to ensure that all of us are successful has been at the level that it is today.
Yeah.
Well put
I'd
there.
agree.
Well put, Jeff. I mean, in a nutshell, that sums it up. The collaboration across all has been very, very well received, and, you know, everybody's been willing.
Yeah, I would echo too, if I could, Neil. Just from a facility point of view, we always had great relationships with Jeff. We always had great relationships with Chris. We always had great relationships with you and with Randy. But the idea that we're having this conversation with all of us and talking amongst all of us is something that I think has been one of the positive things that's come out of the pandemic. We really are kind of more holistically looking at what is in the best interest of everybody in our business and how do we work together. On numerous occasions when we were trying to plan for how we were going to reopen the facility, we had conversations with all the contractors on the phone together. And there wasn't this issue of protecting what my relationship is with my individual customer. It's what do we do collectively for everybody to make sure that we're getting where we need to get to. And I think that we can certainly learn from what we went through in this last year or so and put that into practice as we restart.
Yeah, and I've seen personally some really unique arrangements come out of this already. You know, whether it's, hey, you know, mark the floor for us for the show after you, you know, or you know, we'll share, hey, you've unloaded that equipment. If you just leave it, you know, some basic equipment like a chair, you know, we'll take it on the out for you, and that just eliminates some of the work that happens in between. I mean, there's a lot of unique sharing that, you know, to a certain level always occurred, but now I think you're right. These conversations are happening across the board with the focus on, you know, we all benefit when our show organizer clients have successful shows, and that's our focus, and we all win from that. And so, you know, we're competitors. There'll be a time where we go back to doing what we do, but right now is the time to collaborate. And we're seeing that across the board. Joanne, did you have a comment along that from the labor perspective?
I just wanted to add, as I mentioned earlier, we've been working together as labor for 12 months, but that doesn't exclude our contractors. We've been identifying training programs that our folks might need. You mentioned, David, that we now have broadcast studios. Well, some of our folks may need to upgrade their skills before they're confronted with that in a given show. Our employers have shared that information with us, so we could create those programs, which we're now doing online, to make sure that people go to work ready. And they are ready and they are anxious. So collaboration, collaboration, collaboration goes with communication, communication, communication.
Well put. Well put. Well, one of the ways that we've collaborated too is in advocacy efforts as an association. And for that, Chris, you've been heavily involved in that, as Freeman has done a lot of leading in this. Can you give us an update on where collaboration has brought us in the area of advocacy?
Sure. Our advocacy efforts as an industry started in earnest as we created Go Live Together, which now represents a coalition of more than 2,700 associations and companies from across the exhibitions and conference ecosystem, and it represents 150,000 businesses. And knowing the importance of an ongoing presence and voice in Washington, D.C., helped Go Live Together dovetail or create ECA, Exhibitions and Conferences Alliance. Legislative Action Day, which was June 1 and 2, which included more than 150 industry advocates taking part in the 24 state delegations that, along with our industry's grassroots effort, had over 80 plus House co-sponsors to the Hospitality Commerce Job Recovery Act. 3,054 letters were sent to legislators about the bill using our online advocacy letter writing campaign. Advocacy is a great proof point to our industry's collaboration, to your point, Neil, and what can happen when we all work together.
Thank you, Chris. Well, thank you for this wonderful conversation. Before we go to the Q&A, we've got a few minutes for that. I'd just like to review a couple key takeaways from today's discussion. You know, the time to fully reopen our industry in a safe and responsible manner is now. We've demonstrated as an event community that we can both host small and large in-person engagements, and we do that safely and successfully. And we know that after such a long hibernation, there are unique challenges that we are facing now and through the fall. These are challenges that we have recognized would be coming even during the depths of the pandemic, and we've worked carefully and strategically to address them now for many months. These plans help us get us to a place where we're confident. We have qualified staff that will need to have these successful events. And even the level of collaboration, even among competitors, is helping make that so. So let's address a couple questions, if we will, panel, from the audience. One of them has to do with a number of exhibiting organizations we see. It says, outside of international, are you seeing exhibitors coming back to live events in 2021? Any industries doing better than others in this regard? Who'd like to tackle that from our panel? This, what are we seeing from our exhibiting organizations?
Well, I'll take a stab at it, Neil. When you look at different segments, and certainly here, you know, the manufacturing segment that we have a strong portfolio in, exhibiting community definitely wants to be back face to face. I mentioned earlier Fab Tech, which is a manufacturing event that's going to be here in September. They're going to have 1,200 exhibitors pretty much in their portfolio already signed up and ready to come back. When I look at IMTS, which is one of our larger events that occurs here every 2 years, I just briefly had a conversation with Peter Illman the other day about this, and he says that the sales, even far out to next year, are extremely strong, to the point that, you know, I don't want to talk about what his metrics might be, because that's really for him to announce, but I can tell you that it is strong. So I think when we look at the medical world, I think once there's a clear understanding that it's safe to return, I expect that to do well. RSNA, which is here in the late and the end of December, early December of this year, has already stated that they're getting very strong reactions from exhibitors and from those who want to attend and present papers. So what we're hearing is all good at this point.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing. Go ahead, Randy.
I was just going to add a quick story on the technology sector. This customer of ours actually postponed until December. And then about 3 months ago or so, they looked at things and they actually moved back up into September. So that was an interesting move that we didn't see. We saw a lot of people moving back, but this is actually somebody who wanted to move forward from being previously scheduled for later. So again, a promising sign.
And there's winners and losers. There always will be.
Yeah.
Process Expo is a group that came to us that asked for more space this fall. So, I mean, again, that's another indication that you can have winners. Now, we know that others will take some time, and we've talked about this already on this call, that they'll take some time to ramp up.
Neil, we have, as we speak, Sweets and Snacks is moving into the Indiana Convention Center. Sorry, David, I didn't mean to bring that up.
A little bit to talk about that. But
Sorry. And we have similar shows scheduled through the summer, which I'm grateful for. And then starting in September, it's almost a regular schedule. So we're grateful for that here.
I just have to go on record to say Sweets and Snacks will be back here in Chicago next year.
All right, Chris, close us out.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, this is definitely a bridge year, but our research show exhibitors are eager. And to David's point, manufacturing sector is very strong in leading some of that. So, just not to sound repetitive, it is, as shows come back, from a bridge standpoint, that we got to keep that in mind. But it's exciting.
Yeah, and we're seeing the same thing. We're seeing dominoes fall. I mean, even things like today with California reopening will have an impact as exhibiting organizations decide, look at what's happening. We now reach this level of confidence that it's safe to send attendees and participate in exhibiting at events. What the research shows is that they haven't lost interest in face-to-face marketing, which is the good news. They've just been waiting to make sure that it's safe, their liability concerns are addressed, and as we see these reopenings, we see that easing coming. So even, a week ago, where a footprint may have looked one way, you're seeing them grow rapidly, which goes back to just how adaptive we're going to need to be over the fall, which we're prepared to do. Well, I'd like to thank all of our panelists for their participation today and their dedication to our industry every single day. I'd like to give a special thanks to you, Randy, and the Expo Group for their sponsorship of this meeting and by donating your production team to make this event possible. I'd also like to thank the ESCA staff, especially Julie Cagey, for being really the primary coordinator of this event and keeping us all together. We really appreciate your leadership there. She'll never come on camera, even though we'd like her to, but she can hear it. She's in the background always. And most importantly, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us. I hope we can be in person soon and seeing you on the show floor soon. And if there's one takeaway, I hope you see how through all of our efforts, we are indeed all in. Thank you and see you on the show floor.
I'm kind of proud of my people coming back out of this pandemic. They have a new appreciation for what they had. They have a new appreciation for what they have. And I think that it's a higher commitment than they've ever had before.
And giving our customers and the end users the confidence to know that we're ready. We're in a fighting stance coming out of this. We've spent a year ensuring that we're prepared for this. We're investing in talent as an industry.
We're safe, secure place to do business. That very shortly we will be open. And we welcome all of our customers, whether it's the organizer, the exhibitor, the attendee coming back.
We're ready to roll. Our members are ready to roll. We're ready to do it the right way. And, we're ready to get the trade show and convention industry as a whole back on its feet.
And we just are ready to get back to work. We're chomping at the bit and can't wait for those shows to start again so that we can really rekindle our relationships with our clients and really get back to what it is we love to do.
The thing I'm most excited about with getting back to trade shows is the people side of it. I think the people make up this industry more than anything, and few industries were harmed as much as our industry was, especially on the people side of the business. So to see the great people have an opportunity to get back to work and get back to the trade shows.
And the thing I'm looking forward to the most is getting back to face-to-face business. Reconnecting face-to-face with our clients.
I think the greatest thing about, our group in ESCA is that we really do all take off our individual company hats and put on our industry hat and have that advocacy together to make sure that our customers have the best experience possible and are successful.
It's like everybody's saying, we're all a big family. Even together as an industry, we're a family. And just trying to tell the rest of the world that our industry is still alive and we're going to be there.
I hope communication came out of this. I hope sharing amongst competitors, amongst different groups and across the industry will be our lasting legacy from this. Then finally, as a building, I'd like to say we're excited to welcome people back. I mean, that at the end of the day, we can't wait to get back to doing what it is that we've all spent our careers trying to encourage.
It's hard to appreciate the good times if you haven't experienced any bad. And so I think coming out of this, an increased awareness of the value of live events and gatherings and everyone associated with that can be an opportunity.
We're here, we're ready. And we're better as an industry. At this point, I think we've learned a lot as an industry and have learned how to come together and learn how to help, see what other industries and other areas have done to make themselves better through pandemics and other challenges in the future, and how we can now come together even better and provide a better product and a better service for our customers as a complete industry.